In this video, we're going to cover the billing long invoice. If you are prepared to do a billing and you're checking the person out, you do the same thing each time where you check the invoice to make sure that the billing information is complete. Or did you collect the money for the payment? And in this case, you can see that it actually was collected and there's a zero amount. Now, in the last video, I showed you, just as an example, that there was no payment taken, but this one is the full payment. And the way you do that is to add the date, the amount due, the amount paid. It'll automatically zero out if it's a balance is complete, and then how it was paid. This was actually paid in two parts because there was a deposit and then there was an actual balance payment for the total of the $77.70 for the room for one night. Now let's go ahead and look at the long invoice. The long invoice would be played through this video help or under the one right on the video. It's invoice itself. Let's go ahead and look at the long invoice. Now we did pick Ben Franklin last time, and in this particular video we're going to do the same thing we did last time, but we're going to do it slightly different. In this one, what we're going to do is we can see that we've got the Ben Franklin invoice and the date for that invoice. If he had multiple entries, then there would be multiple lines with multiple dates. Now the reason we do this is that the long invoice is going to display all of the invoices line items for every invoice out there. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to this particular area on the side here where it's going to be very simple to pick the invoice that you're looking for and also put in a date span if you need to, and it actually shows you who the client is. In this particular case, you see what this client here had two booking line entries for invoiced items showing. Let's go ahead and of course you see that up here, the one we just worked on. Let's go ahead and start the find, and you'll see, by the way, that this does summarize the entire amount of the current history of invoices. So if you came up here, this could be a very large number. Let's go ahead and go into find mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick Ben Franklin, and then I'm going to go over and pick Ben Franklin again. This is for the booking ID and Ben's name, and we know that because we looked at the invoice that Ben only had one date entry. In this case, just click away and don't put a date in there because you're not going to do a date range. There's no need to because there's only one invoice date and one line item. Click the find, perform find, and it automatically brings up that invoice with that information in it. Let's do this one more time, and just so you're clear on how it's done, this time take ID for myself, my name, and there is no date range that I have to worry about at this time, so I say perform the find. And as you'll see, that I get two line items. Now, just as a follow-up, we did have a date for the May where this had a new line item that was going to be entered. Obviously, if I'd had the date, it would have shown over here on the side that there would have been something for May. And if this one was already paid, what we would have done was pick the date range like we did the other formula, where we would go ahead and go in here and go into the find mode and put the date range in by clicking one more time and doing the greater than and equal to thing that we did before. And in this particular case, it would be for 5/1 through, and that'd be for 2013, and then the less than or equal to, and whatever date range we want to do. And I'll just do 5/30 so that we have a reasonable range of dates. I know it would not be that actually, so, but we're going to go ahead and do that for 2013. Okay, now that we have the date ranges in there, it's less than or equal to or for the end date and greater than or equal to the beginning date. That way it bounds all the things for the month of May. Now the other thing we need to do if we're going to do that is we need to put a person in. So let's go ahead and put in myself, and there you go. Now you've got the full line with a bound date range, the person and their invoice, do the perform find, and in this case it says that it can't modify it because guess why? We don't have that date information in there yet, and you're going to get this dialog. Since I didn't have the billing range for that, it just shows that we don't have any records for there. You can either modify it or you can cancel it. In this case, I'll cancel it, watch it return all the records. There you go. So those are the current ones for that person within the system. Okay, now when you do use this long invoice, recall that this is an infinite number of line items if you had a long invoice. On the short invoice, it's 24 line items. So anytime you exceed 24 line items on the input on the billing portal, that would mean that you need to go to the long invoice, which is probably only going to be about 1% of the time. And as I said earlier on another video, that's normally where if you have a group and you have several rooms that are involved, where a group has come in and they are paying for the daily usage of rooms, and it might be 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 rooms that they're actually one person is paying for. So you want to make sure that the one person you pick to put in the billing booking is the one person that's going to be paying the bills, so that when the invoice is done, it's correct by the person. Now, in some cases, there's one person and it's a business that is actually in, and they may have a group of people that are doing different rooms. So that you could see all that information, you need to have the company information in there. Okay, as before, there is a print local, and here's the information for doing the bound dates as far as the date field down here is concerned, and the explanation about the booking ID and using these 3 fields. If you have any questions, as always, you can always contact me by email or call me. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, and there's never a charge for tech support. Thank you.